Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me directly through Benji at alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcast. People of Distinction is an internationally syndicated show solely due to the love and support that you all continue to show. We're available across all major podcast distributors, and like I mentioned, people, if you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in because we are delighted to showcase this next guest on our network. And on the line with us today, we have the impressive Lewis McCall. Now listen, man, we're going to be discussing Lewis's incredible book, David, Man After God's Own Heart. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, okay? It's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble. Most importantly, check out his personal website, lewismccallinternational.com. While you're there, you're going to gather more information on him and this book. But get this, man. Lewis has been putting in some work and he has 6 others available at this time. Hopefully a lot more in store in the future. Again, that's lewismccallinternational.com. And people, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Lewis here on the line. Man, listen, people, we've all heard about the story of David from the Bible, right? Like how he faced the giant Goliath and ultimately became king. But for many of us, that's where the story ends, right? Like we don't know more than that. Now, for the people that are believers, people that are invested already in that faith journey, you may know more, but many others don't. Well, today we're diving deeper, okay? This is a story about the unbearable cost of destiny. From shepherd boy to fugitive to king, David's life reads like the ultimate epic, man. Battles, betrayal, heartbreaking loss, and shocking scandal. But at its core, it asks one brutal question. Can profound spiritual connection and profound human failure actually coexist in the same person? That's a deep question, and I think it's one that gets to the heart of everything. Sit back, strap in, and get ready for a fantastic conversation. Let's dive in. Lewis, first and foremost, man, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today, sir?
Hi, Benji. Thank you for having me on. I'm doing great.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, listen, it is a pleasure to have you here on the network. As I mentioned, man, David is a figure that we've all heard of, right? I mean, churchgoers and atheists alike, but you've gone about portraying him in a different way. And we're very, very excited to dive in, right? We're very excited to get to be familiar with this larger than life figure. Now, before we jump into the book, Lewis, start off first and foremost by telling us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Well, I grew up in Chicago. I was the first of my family to be born there. I'm an African American, so we were part of the Great Migration, it's called, of the people who left the South and went to northern cities for employment and to get away from the situation that was in the South. Mm-hmm. I was also the first in my family to go to a university. I went to the nearby Northwestern University, got a PhD there in political science, went on to be an assistant professor at The Ohio State University, and then followed my heart and joined the Foreign Service with the U.S. Department of State. I had a 36-year career there, also attended the National War College, and I have lived in or worked in temporarily more than 60 countries as part of that career.
Love it. Okay, well, listen, man, congratulations on a very impressive career And let's jump into the book now, man. Give us a brief synopsis of it so we know what to expect when we head on over and pick it up.
Well, David is a character that many people know, whether they're or not they are religious. He is someone who rises from obscurity, has some really dramatic introductions, you might say, and goes on. He has a difficult career. He's basically a fugitive for 13 years because of the jealousy of the king. And he eventually becomes the king of Judah, which is his home tribe in that area, after the king and his best friend, the crown prince, die in a battle with Philistines. But then he goes through 7 years of civil war because one of the king's surviving sons continues to hold on to the northern tribes. He then gets control of everything. The northern tribes submit themselves to him, and he starts building an empire. His was the greatest extent that kingdom expanded to, and he basically fought many wars. He also put people under tribute, and he used that to provide for the temple. There was no temple, but what he did was he brought the key piece of that temple, which was the golden Ark of the Covenant. He brought that to Jerusalem for the first time, and he set it up in a way that had never been seen before. And his son Solomon built the temple that housed it.
You know, Lewis, you highlight the 13 years as a fugitive, and listen, as a time where David developed an intimate relationship with God. And that, I think, is a key component, in my opinion, to all of this. Because, listen, as you and I have both stated, David is a figure that many of us are familiar with, although many people outside of the church probably are unfamiliar with that time, right? Those 13 years as a fugitive. So let's diagnose that a little bit further. Let's go there next. How did that trauma of being haunted by God's anointed king simultaneously forge his faith and prepare him for the decisions of his own kingship?
Well, he grew in his faith even before that time, even while he was in obscurity as a simple shepherd. That began the basis because of his communing with God. And the prophet Samuel came and anointed him, fearing that the king would want to kill him, Samuel, if he was anointing someone else to be king. But nothing changed. He was anointed. His brothers were jealous. They thought that they should have been anointed king. And he continued to take care of sheep. But when he had his big breakthrough, which was to kill the giant Goliath, who was kind of like a super warrior, and he did that against the denigration of his oldest brother Eliab, who thought, "Hey, you just come here to see the battle. You know, who would you leave those few little sheep with back home? You get out of here." He killed the giant that no one else was willing to face, and it was then that people sang songs about him, giving him a greater measure of glory than the king. And that's what caused the king to get just furiously jealous and tried 2 or 3 times to kill him at close hand inside the palace. So he had to run for his life. And that was an up and down affair because of people that he convinced to assist him, a town of priests When Saul came after him, King Saul came after him, he had everyone in that town massacred. There was only one guy that survived. And he hid in caves and forests. He wouldn't stay in cities too long, even if the cities had walls and gates, that sort of thing, because Saul was coming after him. And if he got caught inside a city, he'd just surround it and just as well torch it in order to get to him. So as a result, David was depressed at times, even though once he was anointed by the prophet Saul, the Spirit of God came on him, and he was a different man. And of course, God was with him to kill that giant. But that wasn't the only giant. There were other giants. And later on in his career, after he becomes king over everything and starts to age a little bit, he's almost killed by one of those giants. And that's part of the story. So you might wonder, why were there giants there? Well, when Joshua first brought them out of Egypt along with Moses, and then Moses died at 120, and Joshua crosses over the Jordan miraculously, there are giants there. And he and his guys kill them all. But what God did not allow them to do was to go through the area where the Philistines were. The Philistines were not Canaanites. And so that sort of left them for centuries later when David shows up, and it becomes a key opportunity and factor into, promoting him to the status of a national hero.
People, listen, man, remember, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble. Most importantly, it's LewisMcCallInternational.com. Head on over there, purchase your copies of David, Man After God's Own Heart today. But remember, okay, there is a lot left in store. Okay, that is one of 7. All right, there are 6 others that you're going to want to get your hands on. And listen, Father, just listen to me when I tell you, man, you got to do it. And I promise you, there is going to be so much to learn. A wonderful education, but something that even larger than that, I think something that is going to help shift your perception, shift your perspectives. And that's where I want to go next, okay? Because listen, Lewis, as I've mentioned to you, man, the story of David that is most commonly known is that one that you just spoke about briefly, right? Is of course David versus Goliath. Listen, man, movies have been created, television series have been developed, not only about the literal interaction, but also about the analogy behind it. And I think that has always been key. And that's where I want to take a step in that direction now. Slightly moving away from the book and the literal interpretation that you've given, and now looking at it more so as a tip, more so as guidance for readers, for viewers, and how they're able to take it. Listen, Lewis, today, man, people aren't facing literal giants, right? But even though they're not facing the literal giants, they do grapple with systemic injustice, with personal trauma, with overcoming these overwhelming odds that are presented to us in so many aspects of our lives. And honestly, I mean, listen, look, that's life, right? I mean, we're constantly going through those hills and valleys and overcoming adversity to a degree. So I want to now pose the question for you, man. How does David's story, from the underestimated youth to this flawed ruler, how does that story speak to the giants, to the quote unquote giants that we are all facing within our own lives?
Well, Benji, you're right. We're all facing giants because the problems that we have to grapple with will seem gigantic to us in our time of trial. And David's story is sort of a typical underdog story. No one thinks that he can take this giant on. The king tries to give him his armor to go out and meet him on the field of battle, and he can't even move around with it. He's just a kid. He's just a skinny little kid. And so he has to go out without that. And the giant, Goliath, when he sees this is the one that you're sending to me as your champion, and he says to him, am I a dog that you come at me with a stick? His little stick that he had in his hand in addition to his sling. So no one gave him a chance. They underrated him because he made it clear that this giant was not just cursing the army of Israel, but he was disrespecting his God. And so he was going to take him out. And he did. And so for us, even though we're really pressed, and everyone around us thinks that, hey, you're going down. you can't do this. It is a lesson in not losing your faith, continuing in your faith in yourself, faith in God, and watching the impossible happen.
Lewis, thank you very much for that, man. And listen, the book offers a lot. And another thing that I had stated in my opening that I also find very, very intriguing is how David's life argues that profound spiritual connection and catastrophic failure can coexist, right? And I think that's an interesting duality. And I think that's something that I want to take a moment and analyze here for a second. Like, why is this paradox not just a historical or religious note, but actually a fundamentally hopeful and challenging message for a modern audience?
Because David's life is not a linear escalation, okay? He has his ups and he has his downs, and some of his downs are pretty bad. And later in life, when he's king and he's enjoying everything, and he's expanded the empire, he's from a vassal state, they become an empire. He makes some big mistakes. He is not a good father. His children they're getting into all sorts of trouble. There's fratricide within the family, rape within the family, all sorts of things. And then even though he has multiple wives, he goes and he commits adultery with the wife of a real faithful officer who wasn't even born a Jew. He was a Hittite. But he was faithful. He had become a follower of the Jewish faith, and David has him killed, and this brings a lot of judgment on him. And then there are other things that happen along the way. So the latter part of his life has a lot of downward spirals. He makes some bad decisions and has to pay for them. And so you wonder, why is he called a man after God's own heart if he's making all of these screw-ups? And it's because of his heart. When he gets punished by God for what he did with Bathsheba and taking that other man's wife, or in getting sort of puffed up over the number of fighting men that he had and taking a census of them, and God says, okay, I forgive you, but there are consequences. And when he had tried to number the number of fighting men that he had, God speaks to him through his prophet and says, okay, God says you got three choices. Which one do you want for your punishment? And David throws himself on God's mercy. And when miraculously he comes to the point where God has him facing a big angel who is really killing people, and that's part of the punishment. He says, look, these sheep of yours haven't done anything wrong. It was me. Take me out. Kill me, my whole household, my relatives. That is one of the things that touches God's heart, that he's willing to sacrifice himself, not someone else, but he's owning up to his failures, and he's seeking forgiveness. And God, the message in here is that, yeah, you may fall, you may screw up, but God is full of mercy if you face your own failures, admit them, and seek his forgiveness.
Lewis, man, that is a great message. And thank you very much for interpreting it that way and for sharing it with us. And listen, when I think of the story of David, when I think of the story of David versus Goliath, like I had mentioned to you, there's the literal story, but then there's also the message behind it. And the message is something that has always resonated with me. And I know it has for so many others out there listening in, right? Because really, when you think about it, it's a mirror. It asks us to look at our own ambition, our own failures, our own search for grace, and in so many aspects of our lives, and in our relationship with God, that's what we're doing, right? I mean, we're constantly reassessing and trying to find it. But human beings are flawed, man. We're dynamic, and I think that's.
But this is a redemption story, and we all need redemption.
Yes, we do. But I love that message, and I think you've captured it perfectly, man. So, listen, people. I'm going to say it again. It's there on the screen. I know I don't have to, but just to solidify it one last time, remember, man, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble. Most importantly, it's LewisMcCallInternational.com. Head on over there, purchase copies of these amazing books. Be on the lookout for hopefully a lot more on the horizon, all right? There's 7 of them things already, and hopefully a lot more in the future. You just got to check back in frequently to make sure that you're staying on top of it, okay? You know where to go. Lewis, this has been an absolute pleasure, man. A true delight and an absolute honor. I really do mean that. Thank you once again for comprising these books, but most importantly, thank you for being a guest here with us to discuss it all through people of distinction.
Thank you, Benji.